Danielle stepped into the buzzing cafeteria, balancing a tray with a sandwich, salad, and a cup of water. The tables were packed. Software engineers, marketing teams, designers, all immersed in conversations, eyes on laptops or phones. She looked for a seat, walking past clusters of occupied tables. No one looked up. When someone finally did, a young man in a black hoodie glanced her way, then quickly looked back at his phone. She paused near an empty seat at the edge of a long table. "Sorry," said a voice before she could ask. "That's saved." It wasn't. There was no jacket, no bag, nothing on the seat. But she nodded anyway. "Sure." She kept moving, quiet, unnoticed. Near the back of the cafeteria, she found a spot at a smaller table. It had only one chair. That would do. As she sat, a man in a fitted blazer approached. Mid-30s, neat beard, confident stride. He looked down at her with a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Hi. Sorry, this area is actually reserved for staff," he said. Danielle looked up, puzzled. "I'm staff." "Oh. I meant full-time staff," he clarified, gesturing vaguely toward the other side of the room. "There's a space over there for external teams. Contractors, I think." She let the pause hang in the air. "I'm not a contractor." His smile faltered. "Right, there's usually not," he stopped himself. "It's just that I haven't seen you around." "I just started," she said simply. "Ah. Got it." He still didn't move. "What team?" Danielle sipped her water before answering. "Executive operations?" He nodded slowly, clearly trying to place it. "Well, let me know if you need help finding the contractor lounge." She didn't respond, just turned back to her tray. He walked away. A few employees at nearby tables had glanced up during the exchange. None said a word. Danielle ate slowly, quietly. Her phone buzzed once, an internal notification reminding all employees about the all-hands meeting scheduled for 2 p.m. mandatory attendance. She dismissed it and finished her salad. A few tables over, 2 junior employees were deep in conversation but not too deep to notice her. "Do you know her?" one asked, nodding toward Danielle. "No. She's probably with facilities or one of the vendor teams," the other replied, barely lowering their voice. "Looks like she's just here for lunch." Danielle didn't react. Not visibly. But she heard every word. Their assumption was so casual it didn't even sound mean. Just certain. The kind of certainty that doesn't ask questions. That never wonders if it might be wrong. She folded her napkin, stacked her tray neatly, and stood up. As she walked past their table, one of them looked up again, gave a tight, awkward smile. She didn't return it. Instead, she walked toward the elevators. The meeting was about to begin. The auditorium was filling up when Danielle entered. Rows of folding chairs, muted lighting, and a large screen at the front displaying the company logo. People filed in by teams. Familiar clusters. Reserved seats. Whispered jokes. Danielle walked to the front row. A few employees glanced her way, some with puzzled expressions like they weren't sure if she was in the right place. A man near the aisle leaned toward her as she passed. "Hi, this area's actually reserved for leadership." She didn't pause, just took her seat, second from the center. He hesitated, then shrugged and sat back. On stage, the moderator adjusted his mic and tapped the podium. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. We'll be starting in just a minute. And today we're excited to introduce someone very important to the future of this company." Danielle looked around the room one more time. People scrolling phones, whispering, laughing. No one looked at her with recognition. "Not yet." The moderator smiled. "Please join me in welcoming our new Chief Operating Officer, Danielle Merritt." The room turned as one. For a few seconds, no one clapped. The name echoed but didn't land. Some eyes darted to the front, confused. Others looked toward the stage, expecting someone to walk up. Then slowly heads turned. Danielle stood. The same woman from the cafeteria. The woman with the tray. The one they dismissed. She walked calmly toward the stage. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady. Purposeful. A few people started to clap tentatively, out of reflex. Others joined in, a wave of realization moving through the room. She took the podium, adjusted the mic slightly, and looked out across the sea of now silent faces. A few employees exchanged glances. The man in the blazer who'd redirected her from the table sank slightly in his seat. One of the whispering juniors swallowed hard. Danielle didn't smile. Not yet. Danielle waited for the room to settle. The applause had faded, replaced by a heavy stillness. She scanned the faces. Some curious, some embarrassed, a few suddenly very still. "My name," she began, "is Danielle Merritt. I started this week as your new Chief Operating Officer." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I've spent the last 20 years building systems, fixing broken ones, scaling operations, and more importantly, listening." A pause. "In my first few hours here, I learned a lot. Not from reports, not from dashboards, but from walking through your cafeteria. You could feel the tension grow. A few people shifted in their seats. People show you who they are," she said, "when they think you're no one." She didn't look at anyone directly, but some looked away anyway. Danielle let the words linger. In this role, I'll be working closely with every department. That means walking into rooms where decisions are made, but also into places where culture is felt. Lunchrooms, hallways, Slack threads. She glanced down briefly at her notes but didn't need them. I've seen the mission statements. The values painted on the walls. Words like inclusion, innovation, respect. She looked back at the room. And yet, the first interaction I had today before anyone knew my title was being asked if I knew where the contractors eat. A ripple moved through the audience. I was told I didn't belong. A murmur of discomfort. Some heads dipped. One of the junior employees from earlier rubbed his forehead, eyes closed. Danielle remained calm. Measured. I'm not here to embarrass anyone. I'm here to lead. But leadership starts with truth. And the truth is, some of you decided who I was before I even opened my mouth. Danielle's voice stayed even. No badge, no title, no company hoodie, so the assumptions came easy. She let her hands rest lightly on the podium. I've led teams that turned startups into public companies. I've mentored founders, overhauled entire infrastructures. But none of that was visible when I walked in today. All you saw was a black woman with a cafeteria tray. The words weren't angry. They didn't need to be. Across the room, some eyes dropped to the floor. A few arms crossed defensively. But others, especially from the back rows, watched closely, quietly, differently now. I'm used to that, she said simply. It's happened in fancier offices than this. A few people gave a quiet, uncomfortable laugh. No one joined in. But what you do next, she continued, that's what matters. She stepped slightly away from the podium, not for emphasis, just to breathe. Because now, the tone was changing. Danielle looked out again. Not scanning, just seeing. I don't need an apology, she said. Not for a seat. Not for a look. Not even for being told I didn't belong. A beat passed. What I need is for everyone in this room to ask themselves one question. If you didn't know someone's title, would you still show them respect? Silence. One manager in the third row adjusted his posture. The man in the blazer from the cafeteria now sat very still, his jaw clenched. I don't believe in performative fixes, Danielle continued. We're not changing the coffee menu to feel progressive. We're not doing bias training just to check a box. Her voice was firm now, not raised, but impossible to ignore. We are going to build a culture that doesn't require nameplates to deserve dignity. The room wasn't just quiet now. It was listening. Danielle returned to the center of the stage. No slides. No graphics. Just her. This company has potential. That's why I'm here. Not because of the perks. Not for the prestige. But because I believe something real can be built here, something better than what I saw today. She looked toward the back, where a few interns stood near the door, still watching. There's talent in this room. There's innovation. But it won't mean much if it's only shown to people who look the part. A pause. If a woman in jeans and a hoodie can't sit in your cafeteria without being second-guessed, what message does that send to every candidate, contractor, and future leader who walks in without a suit or a name you recognize? She let the question hang. No one answered. That was the point. Danielle leaned slightly forward, resting her palms on the podium again. I've worked in places where bias was invisible until it cost someone a promotion, or a voice in a meeting, or a career. She let her gaze settle on a few faces. Here's what I want you to understand. Respect isn't something you give after checking a resume. It's the baseline. A few people nodded. Slowly, quietly. She continued. In the next few weeks, I'll be meeting with every department. I'll be watching how we collaborate, how we disagree, how we show up. And I'll be asking the same question over and over. Another pause. Does this culture reflect the values we claim? The words weren't accusatory. But they didn't flinch. And if it doesn't, we'll change it. In the audience, the shift was visible. The nervous energy had quieted. No one was fidgeting now. Phones stayed face down. Even those who had dismissed her earlier out loud or in thought were still like something had just turned inside them. At the side of the room, the man in the blazer who'd questioned her earlier finally looked up. His face was pale. Not out of fear, more like shame. In the back, one of the interns glanced at a colleague and mouthed, "That's her?" The colleague just nodded, eyes forward. Danielle didn't bask in the silence. She let it stretch, giving space for people to feel the weight of what had been said. Not to punish. To make sure it stayed. Then she spoke again, softer this time. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to be aware. Danielle's tone remained calm, but there was something firmer beneath it now, something unshakable. This isn't about calling people out, she said. It's about calling people in. She stepped away from the podium and paced slightly, not with force, but intention. If today made you uncomfortable, good. Sit with that. Ask yourself why. She stopped, facing the audience fully. And then decide what you're going to do about it. Eyes met hers now. Some cautiously. Some with quiet resolve. I came here to build something, she said. Not just better products or faster systems, but a better standard. One where your ideas matter more than your image. Where no one has to prove they belong. She nodded once, slightly. I'd like you to help me build that. For a few seconds, no one moved. Then a single clap somewhere near the middle of the room. Not loud, not performative. Just honest. Another followed. Then more. The sound built gradually, not a standing ovation, not a wave of enthusiasm, just a quiet acknowledgement. A release of tension. A reckoning. Danielle didn't smile. She didn't need to. Her eyes found the two junior employees from the cafeteria. One of them looked down. The other gave a small, slow nod. In the back, the intern who had watched everything leaned toward her teammate and whispered, "I want to work for her." Near the front, the man in the blazer, the one who'd told her to move, clapped too. Slower than the rest. His expression unreadable. Danielle turned, stepped off the stage, and walked back to her seat. No music played. No one rushed to greet her. But the room was changed. Danielle sat down quietly. The applause faded, but the silence that followed wasn't the same as before. It wasn't distant or dismissive. It was watchful. Present. The moderator returned to the podium, clearing his throat. "Thank you, Ms. Merritt. Welcome to the team." He tried to carry on with the agenda, but his voice had lost its rhythm. So had the room. Something had shifted, and no one quite knew how to move past it yet. That was fine. Danielle pulled her phone from her pocket, glanced at the screen, and then slid it away. She wasn't in a rush. She never had been. Behind her, someone whispered she was in the cafeteria earlier. A pause. "Yeah. And we didn't even." The rest of the sentence didn't come. It didn't need to. Danielle stayed for the entire meeting. Took no notes. Spoke no further. But by the time the session ended and people filed out, something lingered. Not her title. Not the speech. The stillness she had carried with her. That quiet strength that made people stop, think, and for the first time, wonder what they might not be seeing.